Greetings, various people across the grand and mightiest spectrums of time and indeed the multiverse. I am Alexander Gordon Johans, and I'm kind of gonna warn you. I'm not feeling particularly awesome at the moment. I've kind of got a bug that's just like tiredness and carnate. So I'm not my usual sort of compos mentis self. This is why really I haven't been putting out as many videos as even I would have expected me to be putting out. Because like I will go to record a video and I'm not delivering. I mean, it feels stupid to say this considering that kind of my whole aesthetic here on YouTube is that I am the lolcow people come to watch fail, right? Like Donald Trump. That's my whole thing, my whole shtick is that I'm the fucking weirdo on the internet that people love to laugh at, right? But there is a certain level of quality and professionalism. It's pretty low, but there's a certain level I need to meet. And I haven't been meeting it because I'm just not in a good headspace. Because I'm too unwell. But people have been asking about my fiction, and well, it's kind of like that there is a lag time that I've noticed between me and the rest of the world, right? In the sense that I will say something, I will express an interest in something, and then, like, years will go by, and then suddenly people will notice, oh, wait, you said a thing? Yeah, this thing, we should do something about that thing. I mean, that's kind of why nobody noticed that I couldn't smell for years. Like, I was saying from, like, day one, hey, I can't smell! And it wasn't until I was, like, 14 that my mum suddenly turned around and said, what? You can't smell? That's a problem! We should fucking go look at it! And it's like, I've been saying it since I was 5! What the fuck? Well, no, I haven't been able to smell my entire life. You've been saying it before I was 5, probably. Maybe that doesn't speak well for kind of for my believability there. But like, same thing has been going on with regards to kind of I suppose the state of my mind and how I'm feeling and regards to other people. Like basically 2 years ago I left university. I got diagnosed with basically a tiny penis and infertility and needing testosterone injections. Said goodbye to all my friends, had a job for 1 day and then had to quit it because of the pain, which has just caused like loads of angst. And then my parents were divorcing, and so my dad, because he's a dickhead, decided I shall vent all my rage and frustration against the one person who is still here. What? So like a whole load of shit rained down on me at once. And things were very, 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 very bad. And it's like 2 years later, suddenly people are like, wait, what? You're depressed and suicidal? Oh my god. This is really bad. And it's like, yeah, that was 2 years ago. You've only just noticed? Did like the whole videos on the problems and things just pass you by? I mean, okay, I know it's more forgivable on YouTube because, there is a churn out. in terms of new people coming in, old people leaving. Particularly when you're a lolcow, because it's like new people. Hey, it's the little frog man. Bot's a joke now. Fuck off. So there is a churning effect, which is fine on YouTube, but it is particularly odd when, like, again, suddenly after 2 years, my mum goes, "Wait, what? You're depressed? Quick, we must go! Get you antidepressants!" And it's like, no, hang on, I've already dealt with the worst of it. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, I'm fucked, and things are not going well, and, there's global economic stagnation, and Brexit, and Trump, and probably never gonna get a job, and I kind of too disabled to claim universal credit, not disabled enough to claim disability payments. So I'm fucked, but, like, I'm over the worst of it, and I can soldier on just by playing video games and watching Let's Plays. So, there is this lag time effect that goes on. And so similarly, it's like now the trolls have finally noticed, oh! He's got writing we can have the go at! So I'm gonna talk about my writing, and you can feel free not to give a shit, because Lord knows I will not be giving a shit about what you think of my writing. Okay, so there's kind of 3 eras to my writing, in the sense that there is, there is the kind of the first era, which is kind of the opening up of the multiverse, right? Which is when you first start getting, like, the elder gods popping up and their origin stories, right? This is really where you get the prime time for the Farshnuk and William Dixon Wright. Like, this is the era in which Green-Eyed Nothing, and if it had spawned off into multiple series or whatever, that's where that takes place. And you can find Green-Eyed Nothing episode 0 on the on the fiction. And yes, you can find the fiction on the fiction, but you can find Green-Eyed Nothing episode 0 on my blog. I am going to be making a dedicated section for my fiction on the WordPress page when I get around to making the WordPress page, but obviously I'm ill, so yeah. Green-Eyed Nothing, is sort of it's the William Dixon Wright series of the Farshnuk kind of realizing who he is. This is where you get, the beginning. This is where you get the sort of the idea of the Logicios as the grand empire that patrols the multiverse, and basically, that they were founded by the great Farshnuk, as he is known, the first Farshnuk who realized his potential. And they go around basically finding Farshnuk's and uplifting them, bringing them into the Logicio Empire and using them as like sledgehammers to bring down upon problematic people. And the Logicio Empire is basically one on slavery of these creatures called sylphs. Sylphs were inspired by the Catster comic strip, Diary of a Shrunken Woman, but they are very, very different to ones described there, in the sense that there is more of an intent to display a more sort of scientific, allegorical kind of take on the idea. In kind of the sylph as they are in Diary of a Shrunken Woman they're just purely a fetishistic way to look at women, whereas the sylph kind of, as used by misogynistic bastards in the form of the Farshnuks and in the form of the Logicios, is used that way. But the sylph is essentially this take on the idea of like the fountain of youth having side effects, right? Like, you know, you can be immortal and young and beautiful forever, but the downside is that you're submissive and a pet, right? And the way this originated is from this idea of, like, the three ways of society, right? You have the first way of society, which is, you know, domination and destruction, right? And sort of a key example of this within sort of the multiverse is the Wereshock. The Wereshock is there from day one. The Wereshock is there in the time of, you know, the first era, right? And indeed, the Wereshocks are what actually inspires the Great Nuke to become the Great Nuke in the first place. I will at some point have to do a proper adaptation of the events that inspired the Great Nuke and that whole thing at some point. Like, there is a whole mass of lore and mythology that is kind of there in canon, but was kind of cobbled together from fanfics and whatever, and that is there, but I've not yet gotten into a form that I'm willing to have other people see yet. Even by my low standards. And so the Wereshocks, they are the typical dominating race, because the Wereshocks basically are what happens when the last werewolf is like, fuck this, I just need to survive at all costs, bites into the heart of a Wereshock, and you get a creature that is just rage and lust and domination, but at the same time, because it's human, it can think. It can plan, it can use tools and weapons, and it can have spaceships, and kind of, you know, they're the domination. You know, the first way is domination. The second way is humans. You know, it is sapient, sentient civilizations. We bumble about. You know, we'll dominate occasionally. We'll supplicate us occasionally. We bumble around in the middle, trying to do democracy. Occasionally that fails and we have dictatorships, and, you know, kind of to have a dictatorship, you need to be second way, because you need to be both the dictator and the people being dictated to. Whereas the third way is just the people who, the third way are creatures that survive through being exploited, right? These are, you know, the pets that are too cute, so we will look after them and we will breed them en masse because, they're so cute, look at the cute fluffy thing. It's, you know, the soldiers that we will keep, you know, sending out into battle time and time again, and we will keep recruiting and paying and looking after because you're useful. You know, it's cattle. You know, the idea of, you know, we will keep your species alive because you taste good and we want to have a lot of your organs to eat, so we need to breed you a lot and make sure you're well looked after. Up until the point where you, like, and so essentially, right, the sylphs were created as a way for a doomed, dying, great, you know, ancient civilization to survive this great apocalypse they saw coming by essentially turning themselves into these things called sylphs, into this packaging, so that the other species of the universe would find them far too useful and desirable to get rid of. And then basically, like, this great ark ship with all of this great, you know, civilizations, people transformed into sylphs, docks on a trading station, and the traders, like, you know, they get hold of this stuff and they're like trying to sell these new sylphs, you know, the the ancient civilization turned into sylphs, and it's like, it's not going well, it's not going well, but they find the biological machine that was used to turn the members of this ancient civilization into sylphs. And they and this is called the albino sylph squirrel, right? And so they find this creature, this biological machine, and it is a biological machine. It is meant to essentially enable the species to develop, you know, to develop new and different offshoots of itself, right? Because the whole point is they want to make every one of their species into sylphs. So they need a way to do that. So they genetically engineer an animal that can asexually reproduce, that doesn't need food to live, that its combined excretions can create different kinds of effects on people, right? And they do all this stuff, they create this stuff, they send themselves off. The traders go, hey, you know what, these sylphs, they're not working well, but we've got this sylph squirrel thing. We've got all these customers. You know, and maybe they, you know, find, you know, some sort of, I don't know, like the crystals, the bloody Kryptonians have to store information. Like they find some recording device that explains what the albino sylph squirrel does, and they're like, okay, and so they start experimenting on their customers, right? Because they're unscrupulous capitalists. they want to make money, damn it, and so they're like, okay, drugging people, say, hey, have a drink. What do you think of this? We're trying it out as a new cocktail. It's from a fresh shipment, and like, you know, time after time, people are trying it. It's like, yeah, I don't think much of it. Nothing happens. And then one day, like, a visiting Earth woman tries it, and she transforms, and they're like, oh, I think we found a way to have a sustainable market from this product. And then eventually the Farshnuk comes across it. The Farshnuk, before he has become, before he has been sentenced to exile, because essentially, like, the whole reason the Elder Gods are known as Elder Gods, is because once upon a time, before the multiverse existed, there was just nothingness and void. And within this nothingness and void, as logic evolved on its way to become the multiverse, beings of great unspeakable power, because logic didn't know how the fuck people were supposed to work yet, these beings of great unspeakable power were created. And they are Spring-Heeled Jack, the Farshnuk, the Bamkirsch, Viorum Castiftan, Jivaxi Kulamancy, Gal Placidia, and Pacifist Subus. The seven great gods of the pantheon, right? And generally speaking, there is a sort of male to female, evil to good idea going on in the pantheon. Although both the Farshnuk and the Bamkirsch have their own sort of like female alternatives. The Farshnuk in the form of the Unleasher, which he becomes, you know, after his death, and the Bamkirsch, just because the Bamkirsch has never really cared for gender. Like, the Bamkirsch was just bumming around, screwing with all these different, you know, civilizations, when, you know, the Farshnuk came along having, like, the origins of the Farshnuk is that, basically, you know, the Farshnuk was kind of just this great cloud of gas. You know, well, a great cloud of logic that sort of looked like a cloud of gas, just sort of green in hue, just sort of wafting through the multiverse, when this soul of this woman happened to be sort of spontaneously incarnated in in the nothingness. And the soul. Souls exist because basically, right, logic is what makes the multiverse run. And logic is what makes people run. It's what makes the elder gods run, right? Every thinking thing is logical. And so every thinking thing, as part of the logical multiverse, will have some sort of higher, well, not necessarily higher dimensional, but they will have some sort of logic string associated to them and their thoughts that represents basically the entirety of their thoughts and their personality and memory. Right? This is how were-sharks can recover entirely from a single beating heart, including their memories, because basically, right, when the werewolf bit into the heart of the great white shark and said, "I will survive at all costs," it tapped into an ancient dark magic or ancient dark illogicity that meant essentially the bloodline and memories of the were-sharks would always come back so long as one heart was still beating. Right? In other words, when the werewolf bit into the heart, it sort of imbued the heart as the place where the soul was stored, where the logic associated with that person's mind, memories, and personality was stored. So, for that similar reason, you know, very occasionally, you know, I mean, data gets misplaced, right? Someone dies, and instead of their data being erased, it gets moved somewhere else. Like in an infinite enough multiverse, shit just happens, right? On a large enough scale, every so often, a soul just blips from there and goes to there. And the soul of this woman was someone, it was basically a mother who had been involved in a car crash. She just watched her children die, and she was like, "Please, look, just, where the fuck am I? Where the fuck are my kids? What the fuck's going on?" And like the Farshnuk, who at this point is basically just like you know, the Farshnuk has no gender at this point. The Farshnuk is just the sort of benevolent being wafting through the multiverse. You know, the Bam Kirsch is kind of a dick. The Bam Kirsch just uses people for fun, but the Farshnuk is kind of like, I'm just going and seeing the multiverse. I don't care. And then, you know, the soul of this woman comes to the Bam Kirsch, comes to the Farshnuk, and you know, they have a conversation, and eventually, like, the woman is just so distraught and wants to die. And, you know, obviously, you know, the Farshnuk is a big cloud of gas. He can't do anything. Sorry, the Farshnuk can't do anything, not he, because the Farshnuk isn't a he yet. The Farshnuk has not chosen that as its gender identity. It does not appeal as a gender identity to it yet. But then it absorbs the soul of this woman to essentially end her misery. And as the Farshnuk absorbs the soul of this woman, the Farshnuk gains a humanoid form so that it can go down into Earth and all this other things. It gains a fascination with female biology and a desire to have a humanoid biology to interact with females. But at the same time, the Farshnuk is intensely aware that it is not female. And so, kind of, on the basis and understanding of, you know, the one example of humanity that it has available, it goes, "Oh, well, I must be a man then." Kind of, in order to fit in with this society. And basically, from then on, the Farshnuk is kind of obsessed with women, considers himself a man, and just like begins a series of escapades into the early multiverse that would essentially see him held for trial for a ridiculous number of crimes. This is where he gets the title of Champion of the Sylphs, right? Because the Farshnook, having become obsessed with women and just being like, I love you, you're brilliant, I'm nothing like you, but I want everything to do with you. The Farshnook goes around sort of basically being a massive misogynistic douchebag to so much of the multiverse, doing so many horrible things, and basically goes to the Bankosh and is like, hey, I've just discovered women! I'm a man now! You should be a man too! Let's go and fuck with women, they're awesome! And so the Bamcash just goes along with it because, hey, Farshnook's my mate, sure, I could be a guy. And so they go down, they commit all these atrocities, you know, do all these things, you know. Multiple universal lifespans come and go before finally, you know, like this, the seven great empires, as they are known, reach out of the multiverse, and they manage to capture and arrest these elder gods, and they hold them to trial. But part of you know, the Farshnook and the Bankosh's pillaging is that the Farshnook finds the albino sylph squirrel, and the Farshnook decides, you know what, I really like using this on women. And so he becomes the champion of sylphs, because basically the sylphs go from being this packaging that was used by this dying race and then forgotten about, or used on this one piddly little trade station nobody cared about, to suddenly being like a dominant power in the multiverse. Because the Farshnook is just going everywhere, going, I will turn you into a sylph, and you into a sylph, and you into a sylph, you into a sylph. And that's part of the crimes he is tried under. And so he, along with several of the other elder gods, are executed. Gala Placidia, at this point, is dead, right? The Gala Placidia got herself executed in some sort of disastrous accident, right? But the Farshnook is sentenced to death, and he basically weasels his way out of it, because the man who is sentenced to kill him is a man known as Professor Logisti. And, you know, basically, Professor Logisti is the one man in the entirety of the seven great empires who can really hold his own against an elder god and just be like, no, you fucking shut up and you listen to me. And so the Farshnook at this point, like, basically the more the elder gods integrate with humanity, the more the elder gods, you know, indulge in eating humans and absorbing their souls, the more human they become. So they decrease in power level and decrease in power level. But nevertheless, they're still a formidable thing to take on. So by the time the Farshnook is, you know, on trial and he's about to be executed, he's a lot weaker. And he goes to Professor Logisti and says, look, I fucked up. I've done a lot of things wrong. Give me another chance. I can be better. My soul can give people another chance. You can put morality onto me. I'll be a good boy. Let me have another chance. And so the Professor Logisti agrees. And Professor Logisti, you know, executes him, chops off his head, and the Farshnook's dead. And then he takes his soul in this, you know, orb, and basically rides off through the multiverse, enters into a universe, picks basically a woman at random who is about to give birth to a stillborn child, touches this orb containing the sort of the soul of the Farshnuk. The soul of the Farshnuk, by the way, at this point, right, is just the very genius of his soul. Like, not his memories, not any of that, because it can't fit it, right? Like, it's just the very meagerest, like, part of the soul of the Farshnuk is transferred to this stillborn baby, and that stillborn baby draws breath and lives again. And then the baby grows up, you know, and this is where you get the whole idea of sort of the hosts and the Farshnuk, in the sense that the hosts are the kind of the baby that is given a chance to have life again. And all the time the Farshnuk is sort of growing in the background, because it's, you know, it discarded a lot of its soul, but that logic is still out there in the multiverse, right? So the Farshnuk essentially, like, its soul tries to put things together, kind of grows in the background. But at the same time, it's sort of aware that it can't be too aware, lest it, you know, attract the attention of the Seven Great Empires. And basically, like, other people, other, you know, kids and stuff, they can sense there is something wrong with this kid, right? Because, you know, there is an elder god sitting inside its head, right? It's a little bit weird, it's a little bit creepy, it's, you know, screwed up by nightmares and stuff at night. It's got this, you know, poor kid is growing up with, you know, nightmarish memories of raping and pillaging and all these horrible, horrible things. And so, you know, a lot of the kids are screwed up, a lot of the kids don't make it, right? And basically, the general way for Farshnukes to remember who they are is during sexual intercourse with a woman. And that's the moment when, you know, kind of the Farshnuk realizes, oh, hey, women, yes, I love women, and kind of the Farshnuk, in this moment of rebirth, almost recreates the act that created the Farshnuk as it became known, by absorbing the first woman it comes into contact with. Except because it isn't a great amorphous cloud of logic, but instead is a person, the way it absorbs the woman is by eating them alive. And so, you know, here you essentially have the selection criteria for why so many of the Farshnukes in the fiction are kind of fairly evil white men. Because kind of, first of all, anyone with the slightest moral character is either going to go so completely mad that they don't have an impact on plots, or they're going to kill themselves, or they're gonna, you know, or if they're good, they're gonna get themselves arrested, or, you know, if they're a woman, you know, they're probably likely to realise, what the fuck have I done, and sort of go to the police and stuff. And if they're a black kid, they're gonna get shot dead, right? Like, so many bad things happen in that kind of situation, unless they are a particular kind of fucked up white man who is able to walk away from that situation, cover it up, run and hide, and try to live with themselves. And that's kind of why there is a selecting criteria for kind of Farshnukes in the early period to be basically massive douchebags, because anyone who isn't a massive douchebag would, the moment of that happening, basically no longer be in the story. Because it's like, hey, yeah, because it's a ridiculously traumatic experience, and anyone who is not in some way an evil bastard is going to immediately, like, either kill themselves or get themselves sent to an insane asylum, or they're going to get arrested, or they're going to get killed. You know, like, there are so many ways in which that event limits the kind of people who will walk out of that alive. And kind of the Bamkirch gets reincarnated in a similar way, but the Bamkirch basically gets reincarnated because the Bamkirch is a user of people. The Bamkirch manipulates people. You know, the Farshnuk is like, look, I'm really a good man, just give me another chance. And then sort of circumstances mean that the only kinds of Farshnuks that survive are not good men. Whereas the Bamkirch is just like, you know, a manipulator, uses people, and basically says, look, you get me out of this and I'll scratch your back and blah blah blah. And by the time basically any of the elder gods come back from their, you know, exile and execution, the seven great empires are long gone. So by the time the Logicios are an empire, and they've been formed by the Great Farshnuk, the Great Farshnuk is known as the Great Farshnuk, incidentally, because essentially the Great Farshnuk is a virgin who essentially realized he was the Farshnuk, decided he was the Farshnuk, and essentially, like, the host brain, the host mind, the host soul overtook, encroached into, and killed the Farshnuk soul and drew upon it, right? It's sort of like, you know, twins, you know, absorbing each other in the womb. You know, the host soul absorbed the proto-Farshnuk soul, and thus the Farshnuk is able to do all these things because the Farshnuk is not impeded by the morality that then comes into place through realizing he's a Farshnuk. Like, the Great Farshnuk is not limited, is not trapped by this. And so the Great Farshnuk founds the Logicios, and the Logicios, you know, go around getting all these Farshnuks, using these Farshnukes, and the first sort of part of the multiverse is dealing with that. It's the Farshnukes, it's the Logicios, and, like, there is a bit of the septagonoid threat. The septagonoids, by the way, are basically the ultimate pedants in that. The multiverse exists because the nothingness exists, and the nothingness exists because in complete nothing there is no logic, and so if there is no logic, then nothing can be anything. It can be infinite, it can be eternal, it can be green. The septagonoids exist because eventually logic evolves to the point where beings of pure logic exist, and these beings of pure logic are just like, but hang on, that makes no sense! The nothingness should be an infinite eternal black void. What the fuck are you talking about? Why are there all these people and trees here? What the fuck is going on here? None of this should exist. This makes no sense. This is all bullshit. The septagonoids are the pedants saying, what are you talking about? Nothingness makes no sense. But basically, the Farshnukes can just they just, you know, destroy them, and it's no biggie. Like the septagonoids, like in the early period, they don't know what the fuck is going on, right? Like, the Septaconoids are just beginning to form their own hierarchy, and yeah, they've got an itch that the multiverse doesn't make sense, but it takes them a while to get to, we must destroy the multiverse! And it takes them even longer to get to the point of potentially posing a threat and then being able to hold up in a fight. Right? And this is where, you know, it's within the first era that we get things like it's within the first era that, you know, you get the Unleasher. The Unleasher being essentially the when the Farshnuk has lived out his usefulness as the Farshnuk then undergoes punishment and atonement by essentially becoming the kind of woman that he has spent, you know, his lifetime abusing. And typically what happens is that the Unleasher will be given to the Bamkirsh that they have fought with by their own past self. If they live long enough, that is. And so in that way, the sort of the Bamkirsh then becomes the kind of the monster who fights monsters in the Farshnuk's stead, right? And it's in this era that you get the idea of dragons. That essentially the dragons were created by the Farshnuk to be steeds for the humanoid Farshnuk elder god to ride around the multiverse, and for, you know, the for the Bamkirsh as well, and, you know, his friends and what have you. And it's here that we get into the idea of, you know, Jephaxi-Coolomancy, otherwise known as, like, Kate. And she essentially is the good sister. You know, she is the elder god that is just kind of fairly chill, and, like, yeah, you know, she grew up around the Farshnuk and the Bamkirsh, so she knows how to turn someone into a toy or a sylph, and she knows how to look after toys and sylphs, but really she just wants friends and love and to have a good time, and she's got duty to protect the multiverse, but, like, she's not gonna create empires, she's not gonna create, you know, a great trade, you know, convoy or whatever. She's just going to, you know, bring together like-minded people who want to make a difference, and that's where you get the idea of the Architects of Chaos. The Architects of Chaos are basically Jephaxi-Coolomancy's heroes who go around, you know, helping out because they feel like it, you know. The Logicios do so because, hey, you get a snazzy uniform, you get all these abilities that we've stolen from all these different universes, and you get to mistreat women who are beautiful. And so it's, you know, they're kind of the police of the multiverse, in the sense that, like, they do a valuable job, they do a good service, but everyone sort of looks at them a bit like, right. And it's within the first part of the universe, the first part of the sort of the first era of the multiverse, that you get the idea of free sylphs. That free sylphs are sylphs who are either they're the children of sylphs, in which case all they've ever known is being a sylph, and so therefore they're not, like, yeah, they're submissive and they like to be submissive and they've got all the benefits of being a sylph, but they are not as weighed down and manipulated by being a sylph as other people. And I think I'm going to have to stop here. Sorry, because my nose has reminded me. Sorry. I will keep recording in a minute. So, the free sylphs are what essentially enables all these conspiracies and whatever that the evil Farshnuk set up to be overturned. Because the Farshnuk is the champion of sylphs, and he can use sylphs and manipulate them, but equally at the same time sylphs are his weakness. And so a free sylph is a sylph that can exploit the Farshnuk's weakness without being exploited by him to the same degree. And typically, like, the best way to get a Farshnuk to stop being such an arsehole is to give him a free sylph who has got the kind of enough strength and agency to tell him, oi, stop being such a dickbag. And this is where it is kind of helpful that essentially when the Farshnuk absorbed the soul of that woman and then got exiled to a universe, which thus by virtue of the multiverse is every universe, when that happened, the Farshnuk essentially had this woman's soul bound to his, and so every universe that he incarnates in, that soul of that woman incarnates as well. I suppose that's part of why, you know, you have the whole sort of the Farshnuk reenacting the absorption of the woman that created the Farshnuk in the first place, or at least the Farshnuk who, as the rest of the multiverse, knows him later on. But typically Lucy is not that. Her name is Lucy Dance, the woman whose soul got absorbed by the Farshnuk. Typically she is not the woman that the Farshnuk eats, just because chances and odds and what have you. But she generally is involved in his story. And in general, the early sort of era of the multiverse is much more to do with the sylphs, and it's much more to do with kind of the Farshnuks in their own universes, sort of realizing who they are, dealing with problems in their own universes, and if they go outside, they aren't so much doing so to form a great multiversal empire or anything. They're just going outside because, hey, we can travel the multiverse, let's go explore really wild things. And the Bamkirsch in this early period is very much the Farshnuk's enemy. And you know, until you know the Unleasher is given to the Bamkirsch, of course. And it's here that you get like the origins of the plastic clones and stuff like that, right? This is very much kind of the innocent period of the multiverse, in that this is the period of the multiverse when things are much more just about fun and exploration, and they're more generally fantastical and fun and light. And then we enter into the second era, and I'm going to stop to pause here because I feel like it's important to have a pause between the things. Actually, I might, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to record these in one session, but I'm going to upload the second era tomorrow. So I guess I'm going to call it a day here. You have experienced the first era of the grand multiverse. And in the kind of the second part, I will talk about the second era. And I suppose what is known as the war period. I will see you then. Thank you for watching my main channel. Please remember to leave a like, favourite and comment. Shout out to the dislike club. Subscribe if you like what you saw, and share if you know someone who might be interested in the contents of this video. If you would like to help ensure more videos get made, there are a few options available to you. You can whitelist this channel in your adblock software to ensure what ad revenue you provide has a chance of making its way to me. If you sign up to make a regular monthly donation through my Patreon, then you will get to watch a selection of videos available exclusively to my Patreon supporters over at my Patreon page. One-off donations are payable through PayPal, or if that doesn't suit your sensibilities, you can gift items through Steam or Amazon via my public wish lists. Obviously, I don't expect anything, and the vast majority of my videos will remain free and ad-supported. All that remains is to say Trump should be impeached, the genocidal must be stopped, and institute universal basic income now.